When I was 5, a Pizza Hut employee told me that the powder on the breadsticks was called fairy dust. Ordered extra fairy dust on my breadsticks until I was around 14, when an employee said, "Do you need garlic salt?" It still devastates me to realize how obtuse I was. What's a moment where you realized you've been doing something the wrong way for years? It wasn't very long, but when I was learning to drive, my dad was explaining the rule of thumb regarding a safe distance to be behind the car in front of you. I thought it meant to hold your thumb up, and if your thumb didn't cover the entire car, you were too close to it. When he caught me doing that, he asked me what I was doing. When I explained, he burst out laughing, then considered it, and concluded it wasn't a bad idea, but perhaps a bit distracting. We bought a nice liquor cabinet. We got it delivered and noticed it was a bit shorter than we thought. No biggie. 3 years later, we're moving. Lift-up cabinet and these beautiful, ornate, screw-on legs wrapped in tape and bubble wrap fall off the bottom. Looks so much better now. Until last week, when my father-in-law would make a phone call on his very basic non-touch screen flip phone, he would open the menu, scroll to the phone icon, open it, hit the soft key for contacts, scroll to the person he wanted to call, press OK, then press the soft key to call. When he mentioned how he preferred his landline because he could just dial the number, I said, "Humor me. Just dial the number and hit the talk button." I've never seen a man so simultaneously grateful and embarrassed. Couple years ago, I was trying to open some toothpaste and had to break the seal of the tube. I used to look for something like a nail to break it. Then one day I looked at the pointy end of the cap and thought, what if I could use this to break it? And oh, it did fit and broke it effortlessly. And so did every other tube product I had in the house and the respective cap. My mind was blown. Edit. Changed dental paste to toothpaste, since it sounds weird in English. I was cooking with my boyfriend a month or so ago, and I was confused when he mentioned he hated opening tubes of tomato puree, because I just find it satisfying. I then proceeded to stare at him in disbelief when he started trying to peel the tiny foil seal off the end of the tube. I just slowly reached out, picked the screwed-up cap off the counter, and showed him the pointy bit. Since the dawn of time, I would pick up the silverware and utensils out of their tray in the dishwasher and put them away in their drawers, then go back and pick up more out of the dishwasher. Then one day I saw my wife lift the tray out of the dishwasher, and I legit stood there with my mouth open. When I was a kid, I loved drinking coffee, but didn't know how to make it. My mom taught me, but the coffee ratio she told me to use was like 1 tablespoon per 1 pot of coffee, as opposed to the actual ratio, 1 tablespoon: 1 cup of water. Fast forward about 13 years to a couple months ago, and I was reading the back of my Folgers coffee thing, and there was a little diagram showing how much to actually use. I then realized my mom had told me the wrong amount so I wouldn't drink all her coffee, and B wasn't super hyped up going into school. I lived in a house for 6 years with a bathroom with no shelf or cupboard to put toiletries into. I was very disappointed and ended up using a windowsill that was way too small to fit everything anyway. One day we had a friend over, and he asked why we don't have anything in our bathroom cupboard. I was confused, so he showed me. It turns out that the mirror I had been using for 6 years has a hidden compartment behind it. It was a mirrored door to a mounted cupboard on the wall. I was astonished and immediately moved all my stuff from the window into the new space. My friend was baffled that I had never figured out there was a space behind the mirror. There was an obvious gap between it and the wall that I somehow failed to notice. No one really ever told me you don't need to buy shoes with the 2 fingers space in front of the toes after your feet stop growing. I'd been buying an entire size too big until about age 23.20. One day in college, I decided to try a pair of Merrell barefoot type shoes, and after reading the sizing guide, bam, mind blown. It's terribly obvious mistake I, 29F, like to blame on being an only child. I had this problem until about 25. Never really thought about it. I was always a size 10. That's what mom bought me in high school. Why would it be any different now? Only thing is, I stopped growing at 14. Never had another growth spurt. As guys, we were always told you'll keep growing till late teens, early 20s for some. Yeah, that didn't happen for me. Luckily, I was buying a pair of nice boots, and the clerk was like, "Dude, there's no way you're a size 10. You're barely a size 9. I was so happy once the blisters I'd always dealt with went away. I grew up without a mom. She passed when I was 6. I was afraid to ask my dad how to put a tampon in. One day I made a comment about age 18 to some friends that tampons hang out too far out your vajingo and made me feel like I waddle when I walk. My friend asked me how I put them in. I thought it would get stuck up there and wasn't inserting it far enough. Did it wrong for about 5 years. My friends still make fun of me for it. I can't help but use the dead mom card, but looking back it's pretty common sense how to shove it up there. Edit. For all those asking, I didn't really feel comfortable with my body, so I'm not sure I really understood what the directions were asking. For others asking, my dad was a really good dad. Obviously, he made some general mistakes as a parent, as all parents do, but as a substitute. Mother, he did a great job. He taught me how to shave my legs, funny voices and all, and he was a Girl Scout troop leader for almost 10 years. He tried to figure out how to French braid, and he did comb my nasty ratty hair on a daily basis. Edit. Thank you, kind stranger, for popping my silver cherry. I thought this emoji was a shy smile for like 2 years because on my Galaxy, it didn't look very annoyed like it does on other phones. Until my boyfriend questioned me and told me it was a rolling eyes emoji. I had been using this emoji with everyone meaning it to be a smile, but they must have thought I was so mean. Not wrong for years, but I work help desk, and we use a specific terrible piece of software for our support system, IBM Notes. It turns out that for the first 9 months I had been working there, it wasn't set up properly, so I wasn't sending any emails from it at all. No notifications that the ticket went to me, no responses from me, no close notifications, nothing. Someone noticed this, took a look, and fixed a setting. I immediately sent out over 1,000 emails to everyone in the company. Not mine, but my dad has been spelling his name wrong his whole life. He's 51. His name is Jeffrey, and he's been spelling it like that since he learned how to spell his name. A few months ago my mom pulled out his birth certificate, and we all learned it's actually spelled Jeffrey. Not sure if he spells it correctly now, but it was definitely a moment for him. I was at Crate and Barrel with my GF, talking about how it's so weird they don't make tongs, so you open them up super wide and then press in. I thought it was odd that they only gave you a super tiny opening. In the middle of me saying this, she just presses the button at the bottom of the tongs I was holding, and I stopped mid-sentence in shame. My family always had a cup next to the bathroom sink in case you needed to rinse your mouth after brushing your teeth or maybe get a quick drink of water in the middle of the night. My grandma had the same cup at her house. I used it for years whenever I was thirsty. One day she saw me doing this and said, "Don't use that cup. That's where Grandma puts her teeth." One time me and my little cousin were brushing our teeth at the same time at my grandma's. She had to have been maybe 7-ish, and grabbed the pink cup and took a sip before I could stop her, and the dentures came at her, and her eyes got so big, she just put the cup back and left the bathroom. Edit. WOW, thanks for the silver. I'm gonna tell her that the fake teeth coming for her has given me so many internet points, although she probably doesn't even remember. Living in a foreign country where I was actively learning the language. Social cues go a long way when learning a language on the spot. That being said, someone once said a phrase to me while serving a hot dish, which I had assumed as meaning "excuse me." After going through crowds and lines, replicating the same phrase in an attempt to be respectful of those around me, I abruptly found out that the phrase actually meant enjoy. Hindsight completely makes sense. The odd looks I would get by saying enjoy while squeezing past people all of a sudden made sense. Edit. Wowzers, y'all really know how to make a grown man blush. Thanks for the gold and silver, you beautiful, beautiful strangers. I'm glad my mistakes bring such enjoyment and hilarity to the world. So this happened while I was living in Vietnam. The phrase was xin moi. It was even more deceiving because it was similar to the phrase for sorry, which is xin loi. That was year 1. The following 3 years were full of similar mistakes. Tomo languages are tough. Me while serving a hot dish, which I assumed as meaning excuse me. After going through crowds and lines, replicating the same phrase in an attempt to be respectful of those around me, I abruptly found out that the phrase actually meant enjoy. Hindsight completely makes sense. The odd looks I would get by saying enjoy while squeezing past people all of a sudden made sense. Edit. Wowzers, y'all really know how to make a grown man blush. Thanks for the gold and silver, you beautiful, beautiful strangers. I'm glad my mistakes bring such enjoyment and hilarity to the world. So this happened while I was living in Vietnam. The phrase was xin moi. It was even more deceiving because it was similar to the phrase for sorry, which is xin loi. That was year 1. The following 3 years were full of similar mistakes. Tonal languages are tough.